Welcome to the Pylon Cam YouTube channel. It's your boy Mike, and if you stumbled across this glorious channel, you have struck gold. This is where the fantasy content is. This is what's going to help you win your leagues. This is where you get to hang out with your boy. Catch me on Twitter. We have a podcast that is going to be revived come NFL season. We're on Instagram, and you've obviously found us on YouTube. All the podcasts will be on YouTube and are on YouTube. If you want to check those out from last season. We did a fantasy podcast and a NFL content podcast. But in this video, we're going to go through my top 20 running backs being ranked 20 through 11. We already did running backs 1 through 10 in a previous video. I'll link that in the description. If you disagree with this list, I'm just going to go ahead and Zach Wilson your mom. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this video. At rank 20, we got David Montgomery. Also, please ignore all the baby sheesh in the background. Can't do nothing about it. But at rank 20, I got David Montgomery. Coming in at the RB20, ADP 52. I think if you're going to go with like a wide receiver heavy front end of your draft, David Montgomery should definitely be one of your targets in the later round. Being that you're getting a bell cow in the RB dead zone rounds. I think they're only dead zones if you don't know where to look. But David Montgomery is the bell cow in Chicago. I also would argue he's not even the best running back on the roster in Chicago. But that doesn't matter. Montgomery played 74.6% of team snaps in in 2021. The volume and opportunity for Montgomery is definitely there. Like I wouldn't worry about this offense being bad because it was bad last year, and Montgomery still was a good fantasy option. They did literally nothing to help this offensive line. They did nothing to help Justin Fields. They drafted Velus Jones and traded for N'Keal Harry. Those are the only. Well, and they also signed Byron Pringle. I mean, do with that, whatever you want. But anyway, I like David Montgomery. I've always liked David Montgomery. I think the only concern I have with David Montgomery is there is a rumor speculating that this might become a committee backfield with Montgomery and Herbert, but there also is reports that are saying the complete opposite. So we will have to see in preseason what snap share looks like, what they're doing on each down, who's catching passing work. I think Khalil Herbert might be the better running back, but I think they're going to preserve Khalil Herbert for when it comes time for contract negotiations for David Montgomery, and they're going to let him walk. I mean, I don't think that Chicago wants to pay a running back. I don't think they are in any position to pay a running back with all of their other glaring needs on both sides of the ball. I like Montgomery. I think he's a good talent. I think he's a good fantasy football player. I think the only worry I have is his production. It's not even, I don't think the scenario for the committee backfield is even real. It's just, can he reproduce what he did last year, which was okay. It wasn't like he was an elite fantasy running back. He wasn't even a great fantasy running back on a week-to-week basis, but the opportunity and the volume is there. So I like Dave Montgomery, especially if you're going to go with a wide receiver heavy front end of your draft. Coming in at rank 19, I got Josh Jacobs. I think... And Josh Jacobs currently, all of these are according to Underdog. RB22, ADP 61.5. I think Josh Jacobs is quite possibly the most underrated running back in fantasy football and has been since the second year of his career. Jacobs has always been a consistent option when it comes to fantasy and has always produced good numbers. This year, he is by far in his best situation since entering the league. For the first time, Josh Jacobs is not only the legitimate threat on the offense, the arrival of Davante Adams and Josh McDaniels could give this offense the jolt it needs to become to elevate Josh Jacobs to a new level that we haven't seen in the NFL. I do have a few concerns for Jacobs. I think that like his passing volume is going to be severely limited by what Kenyon Drake was brought in to do. He is the primary pass-catching back. They also did go out and draft Zamir White, who was a very good running back in college. They did decline Josh Jacobs' option, which leads me to believe they are going to run Josh Jacobs until he's literally dead. But Josh Jacobs should be playing with a chip on his shoulder, being that he's got a point to prove that he was worth the contract extension, being that he was a first-round pick out of Alabama. They should have extended him. He has been a big contributor to this offense since forever, since he's been drafted. I think that was kind of disrespectful to him to not even pick up the option, but it makes sense because I don't really agree with paying running backs. So with all that being said, I like Jacobs. I think he's going to definitely 1,000,000% outplay his ADP. He's not going to finish as the RB22. There's literally no chance. This kid just has a nose for the end zone. He's constantly scoring touchdowns, and he always finishes higher than what people remember. I think people always forget about Josh Jacobs when they make their rankings. That's why I don't really agree with where he's ranked on consensus. They make their rankings and totally forget what he did the previous year. Josh Jacobs is a touchdown scoring machine. Sure, he's not going to have a 60-yard tear breakaway touchdown. That's not what Josh Jacobs does. Josh Jacobs is a red zone back that gets in there and scores touchdowns. That's literally what he's done since entering the league, and he's never not done that. So I think Josh Jacobs is super disrespected, and kind of similar to David Montgomery. If you're going with a wide receiver heavy draft, you could get Josh Jacobs in the 6th round. The 6th round. That is insane for someone who's constantly in the top 15 range for running backs. Josh Jacobs is such a solid option. So disrespected. If you're going to draft a lot of wide receivers early on, definitely go ahead and snag yourself a Josh Jacobs. At rank 18, I got A.J. Dillon, the biggest quads in the NFL ever. Maybe next to Saquon. Him and Saquon probably got a measure. But anyways, coming in at the RB24, ADP 66, I think this is absolutely insane. I don't see how or where these rankings came from. I think that a lot of people look at numbers and don't actually watch. I think the eye test should play a huge part in fantasy, and I think that's very much so ignored by a lot of people. Dillon quietly played, which is weird because if you're looking at analytics, you should know that Dillon quietly played the RB1 role for Green Bay in 2021. He out-carried Aaron Jones 187 to 171. In the red zone, Dillon had more carries than Aaron Jones inside the 20-yard line, the 10-yard line, and the 5-yard line. This is their red zone running back. The biggest thing that I think for Dillon going into 2021 is the departure of Davante Adams, and here's why. This Packers offense needs to evolve. It's going to need to change to remain competitive, being that the best wide receiver in the NFL is no longer on their team. I think Dillon becomes the main force on the ground with Jones complementing in the passing game. Am I saying that Aaron Jones is not going to be used out of the backfield? Absolutely not. But I think that what we've seen with the splits last year, even though Jones got hurt for one game, the splits last year indicate that Dillon is going to be the primary force on the ground and in the red zone. Dillon is one of my favorite sleepers in all formats. I think that he has RB15 potential at his floor, and God forbid anything happen to Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon will be finishing inside the RB10 week in and week out, like no questions asked. This kid is unstoppable in the red zone. He can catch passes, and he's just a monster. Like this picture, look at him. He's just a mammoth. I love Dillon. I think he's an absolute beast. I think this is a situation in Green Bay kind of similar to Denver of last year where we could see two running backs finish inside the top 16 with Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams. And I also think that these two are much more talented, being that I think A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones are both more talented than Melvin Gordon. I'm not going to say Javonte Williams because I think Javonte Williams is a god. But I do think that Dillon at the RB24 is ludicrous. That is just insane to me. But if you're going to go top-heavy wide receiver, you could potentially get an RB2, RB1, potentially in the 6th round of drafts. So I would definitely target A.J. Dillon. He's one of my favorite sleepers, if not my favorite sleeper going into 2022. At rank 17, I have Sir Nicholas Chubby. I think that Nick Chubb is beyond the days of giving me a Chubby. At the RB13, ADP 25.1, I think he's severely overvalued. Don't get me wrong. Don't hear what I'm not saying. Nick Chubb is one of the best running backs in the NFL, period, end of story. It's not even close. Personally, I thought that Nick Chubb's 2021 campaign was very disappointing, given that we finally had the opportunity to see what Nick Chubb could do without Kareem Hunt, being that Hunt missed 11 games. But he didn't give us that Chubby that we all wanted. Nick Chubb is one of the best running backs in the NFL, no question. But I'm worried about his fantasy production in 2022. He has never been the pass catching option in Cleveland, and when Kareem Hunt did get hurt, like I mentioned before, the Browns decided to lean on Ernest Johnson for their pass catching option. They didn't give it to Chubb. If they had given it to Chubb, Chubb probably would have been a top 5 running back every single week in the NFL. Plus, with Chubb's injury history, I worry that the Browns may lean on Chubb too heavily to start the year without any certainty on when Deshaun Watson will play. They might lean on Chubb too much as they wait for Watson to get back, that he might get hurt. We've seen Nick Chubb get hurt. I think 2 years since he's been in the league, and he did have that really bad injury when he was at Georgia before he got drafted. I love Nick Chubb. He is one of my favorite players in the NFL, but I think given that we finally had the chance to see what Chubb could be by himself without Kareem Hunt, and Cleveland opted to give D'Ernest Johnson the pass-catching work, it really lowers Chubb's ceiling because we now know that, in a backfield where Chubb is the only option, they will give the passing work to someone else. I think Chubb is a great talent, but I worry about him being an elite fantasy option, and I think at his current ADP and current ranking, I think he's going way too high than where he will finish in 2022. At rank 16, I have my boy Javonte Williams. Javonte Williams was my RB1 coming out last year. He is currently going as the RB11, ADP 23.2. I think Javonte is a top running back talent in the league, and this is a ranking that I could look back on in 2020, going into 2023, and be like, Mike, you're an idiot. How did you have Javonte Williams that low? Here's kind of my argument. Here's my argument for why he can finish higher, and then I'll say why I think he's going to finish around this range, similar to last year. In his one game without Melvin Gordon, he scored 29 fantasy points, going for a total of 178 yards with 9 targets. I think that Javonte's ceiling by himself, and he is a prolific pass-catching option, he could finish as the RB1 overall in fantasy football. However, Melvin Gordon is returning, and he will be a thorn in the side of Javonte Williams. I think that since the Broncos will be in much more competitive games than last year, they're going to keep their best back in, which is another reason of why I think Javonte may finish higher than RB16. Even though they're going to be in more competitive games, and I think Javonte will stay in the game more than Melvin Gordon, I think that the investment in being that Javonte will probably be your second-round pick, your third-round pick at the beginning of the third, I just think that, personally, I would want a player that I know is not going to be hindered by anybody. As in, like, if I'm in a game where, I need 4 points to win, and the Broncos are slaughtering someone, and they throw Melvin Gordon in the fourth quarter, and he scores that touchdown, and then I lose by 4 because Melvin Gordon is there, it's reasons why I'm taking players like Saquon Barkley, Najee Harris, basically players that don't have that second option. Derrick Henry, all of these other guys, because with those players, there's no opportunity for that to happen. Whereas with Javonte, Melvin Gordon is rostered, and I could see them giving fourth quarter workloads to Melvin Gordon in games where they are just completely obliterating someone, and I don't really want that for my second round pick. I think, like I said, I think Javonte Williams could be the RB1 probably in 2023. But for this year, with Melvin still being on the roster, I worry about those situations where I need just a few points to win and Melvin Gordon comes into the game. That's why I have Javonte ranked as RB16, and this is someone I could be definitely wrong about when I look back on this in 2023. At RB15, rank 15, I got Aaron Jones. Currently, he's RB9 with an ADP of 17.2. I think you could make the case that he's the best receiver on the Packers roster at the moment. But like I mentioned with A.J. Dillon, I think that with Aaron Jones, the perk to Aaron Jones of why it tips him over A.J. Dillon is he has undoubted pass-catching chemistry with Aaron Rodgers. The Packers will have to devise a new scheme that sees Jones more involved in the passing game and potentially lining him up out of the slot. We've seen Aaron Jones go absolutely nuts, seeing an absurd amount of targets when Davante Adams is not on the field, when Davante Adams is hurt or whatever the case may be. I think Jones is going to be probably the most dependable piece of this offense for Aaron Rodgers in PPR leagues, half PPR leagues. I think Aaron Jones is going to get that nudge over A.J. Dillon. Just being that the pass catching volume he's going to see. The other thing for Aaron Jones is he is a very, very, very good red zone pass catcher. He's also has way more breakaway speed than A.J. Dillon. We've seen Aaron Jones break off runs. He's one of the quickest, fastest backs in the NFL, and I really do like Aaron Jones as a talent. I think his situation is going to see him similar to last year, but I think his ceiling is lowered by the influx of volume that A.J. Dillon is going to get in 2022. At rank 14, I got my boy Zeke. I think currently the most disrespected, out of hand, craziest takes are about Tony Pollard. And I'm going to talk about Tony Pollard when I talk about Zeke because it is not like. Let me just drop some knowledge on you real quick. Zeke finishes the RB17, or I'm sorry, is currently going as the RB17, ADP 39.9. And you could potentially get a league-winning back in Zeke in the 4th round. You could be getting an RB1 in the 4th round. With this whole Pollard shenanigans, like Pollard's more efficient than Zeke, Pollard's more quick. Zeke still finished with the 7th most rushing attempts in the NFL, the 7th most rushing yards in the NFL, and the 6th most rushing touchdowns in the NFL. And he played a majority of the season with a torn PCL. Zeke had over 100 total rushing attempts than Pollard, and 8 more touchdowns than Pollard. Zeke played 66% of the team snaps compared to Pollard's 30.5. That is a 70-30 split, and we're worried about Tony Pollard taking work away from Zeke? For what? For what? And I understand schemes change, teams change, but Zeke had 19 more targets than Pollard Pollard wasn't even the primary pass catching option. And this is the Dallas Cowboys, who have the most insane owner in Jerry Jones. Do you think Jerry Jones is going to change this offense or change what he wants the offense to do when they are paying Zeke $19 million a year versus Pollard's like pennies? That's absurd. Zeke is going to, I'm not saying he's going to finish with the 7th most rushing attempts, the 7th most rushing yards, and the 6th most rushing touchdowns, but he's going to be close. And this whole Zeke didn't look as good as he did last year, well, obviously not if he played 3/4 of the season with a torn PCL. Now he's healthy. Now he's back in this offense. He's still the bell cow, and I don't think this split, if let's just say at an absolute maximum, it goes from 70-30 at a maximum. I'm projecting it goes to a 60-40 with Zeke still handling the red zone work, still scoring more rushing touchdowns, and still catching more passes than Pollard. Zeke is the RB1 in this backfield, and it is not even up for discussion. At RB or rank 13, I got my boy Breece Hall, the new Batman in Gotham. I think, first, currently, Breece is coming off as the RB18, ADP 42.2. He's a steal, 100% a steal, because I really do think that Breece Hall is going to be the main point, the main target, he is going to be this offense. Because here's why. Breece is a young, big, explosive back on an ascending offense, and he was a very efficient in college and a fantastic pass catcher. This team is ran by Joe Douglas. Which organization did Joe Douglas come from? Oh, that's right, the Baltimore Ravens. And Robert Saleh. Which organization did he come from? The San Francisco 49ers. 2 organizations, 2 franchises that do one thing better than everybody else, and that is run the football. Their franchise's success have been dependent on running the football. The Jets also traded up to get him at pick 36 and make him the centerpiece of this offense. He is people keep saying, "Oh, Michael Carter's there." Dude, Michael Carter could not have had a better season last year, and they still traded up for Breece Hall. Also, who do you think's going to be on the field in the 4-minute drill and the 2-minute drill? Breece Hall. It's not going to be Michael Carter. Sure, Michael Carter will steal some passing volume from Breece Hall, but who's going to get that passing work in the red zone? Who's going to get those goal line attempts? Who's going to get the rushing attempts inside the 20, 10, and 5? It's going to be Breece Hall, and it's not even close. Also, Robert Saleh's biggest gripe with Zach Wilson last year, and they talked about this, reports are on this, it is documented, that Robert Saleh was going nuts that Zach Wilson wouldn't stop playing hero ball. He wouldn't stop just hitting his check down. Just throw it to your check down. I think with Garrett Wilson on this offense, with Corey Davis, who was very underrated last year, and Elijah Moore, who also was very underrated last year, this is going to be not a very good offense, but it is definitely an ascending offense. And they rebuilt the offensive line. I still have my doubts about Mekhi Becton, but the Laken Tomlinson signing was fantastic. they've done their due diligence to get this offense to where it needs to be. Now it is on the shoulders of Robert Saleh and Zach Wilson, and I think they got Breece Hall to make Zach Wilson's life a lot easier and to make everybody's life a lot easier because now they could efficiently run the ball. They've rebuilt the offensive line. They've done everything right, and it's all going to be centered around Breece Hall. I'm telling you, his floor is RB13 or rank 13, RB13, whatever you want to call it. I think there is no scenario, unless barring an injury, he finishes outside the top 13. Breece Hall is one of my favorite running backs to draft this year, and if you don't agree with this, I'm going to Zach Wilson your mom. At rank 12, I got Alvin Kamara with an asterisk. Little asterisk. I think the report is that he's going to miss 6 games, so he may not finish his RB12, but nothing has come out yet, so I'm just doing this video in light of what we know, and what we know is that he's not suspended yet. He's currently going as the RB15, ADP 33.9. Kamara played 75.7% of the snaps last year, so he was on the field literally all the time, unless they were like punting. I'm just kidding. But Kamara has been the heart of this offense for the past 4 years. It's not going to change. I think this is another breakout year for Kamara now that he will not be the focal point for defenses. Jameis Winston's coming back, who played fantastic, by the way, last year. His first 4 or 5 games, he was great. He was probably the best version of Jay Boogie that we've ever seen. They drafted Chris Olave. Michael Thomas is coming back. I think Kamara is a safe bet to finish as the RB1, or as an RB1, sorry. And on something I incorrectly predicted last year was Kamara had a career high in carries, which I did not expect. He had 240 carries last year. He's still going to be catching passes. He's still going to be carrying the ball at a high volume. Now, defenses do not have to worry about just Kamara. Last year, the only other player that defenses had to worry about were Marquez Callaway, who duped us all in that one preseason game, and Lil Jordan Humphreys. So if you're a defensive coordinator, all you talk about for a week is Alvin Kamara if you're going to play the Saints. You don't talk about anything else. I also think the Saints are going to have a very good defense, and I think if Jameis Winston plays like 80% of how well he was last year, this is going to be a good enough offense where they're playing ahead most of the time rather than behind. I will say, though, I think the Saints are I'm having the toughest time evaluating the Saints than any other team in the NFL, just being that I don't know what they're going to be without Sean Payton primarily. But Kamara, very safe running back. The only thing that would asterisking rank 12 is the suspension, because I think he will get one, but as of when I'm recording this, July 21st, nothing's happened yet. At our rank 11, RB16, ADP 34.7. I got my boy Travis Etienne. I think there's a very good chance that he finishes inside the top 10. And I think that this whole concern about James Robinson is so crazy to me, because Etienne is going to have all of the time in the world to prove himself as a goal line back. He's already proven himself as a pass catcher. And dare I say, he is the best skill position player on this offense. I don't even think that's close. His competition is Christian Kirk, who is not good at football, like objectively not good at football, especially as a wide receiver, one. Also, he's dealing with Marvin Jones, Zay Jones, and I don't even know who their other wide receiver is. Forgetting. I would argue that Etienne is the top pass catching option in this offense. They now have Doug Peterson there, who loves running backs. And I think despite Etienne not playing for his rookie year, he is the only form of familiarity that Trevor Lawrence has in 2022. All of Trevor Lawrence's previous wide receivers are gone, except for Laviska Shenault. He's the only wide receiver left. So with this whole brand new receiving core, plus Travis Etienne, Marvin Jones was there, but plus Travis Etienne, he played, 3-4 seasons with Travis Etienne? I forget if they came into Clemson at the same time. Trevor Lawrence knows what he has in Travis Etienne. He does not know what he has in Christian Kirk. He doesn't know what he has in Zay Jones. He doesn't know what he has. He does know what he has in Marvin Jones. But I do think that Etienne is going to be the focal point of this offense, and I do think he asserts himself as a dominant red zone rusher before James Robinson comes back. Like, let's not forget that James Robinson got hurt in week 16. I think it was 16 or 14 last year. Cam Akers got hurt before training camps. So before the time I'm recording this video, he got hurt a month ago, this time last year, in June of 2021. And that dude did not make it back until the playoffs. We really think James Robinson is going to come back and be the same player he was before he tore his Achilles? Dude, Travis Etienne is going to dominate this offense. You could get him around 3. He's going to be an RB1. Please, 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 please draft Travis Etienne. Anyway, lads, that's going to do it for this video. These are my top 20 RBs. Let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know if you think I'm delusional. That's fine. Just explain yourself. I won't get hurt. I promise you. We'll have a great discussion in the comments, and we might become friends. So let me know what you think. Hit me up on Twitter. Hit me up on Instagram. Do whatever you want to do. Door's always open. And I hope that you have a great fantasy football season, and I hope that this video helps you win your leagues. But I'll catch you in the next one. Like, comment, subscribe, do all that cool stuff, and let me know what you think. Peace!